FunSpot America Atlanta opened as Dixieland Fun Park in 1990, renamed to Fun Junction USA in 2012, and then was acquired by FunSpot in 2017. Up to that point, they only had one coaster, Hurricane, and FunSpot added a kids coaster called Sea Serpent in 2019, but the park was still missing its one signature coaster, the same main attraction the FunSpot parks in Florida have. In 2021, we heard that FunSpot was working with RMC, and we figured this family entertainment center was getting one of those new family coasters RMC was talking about. Then we started seeing images, inversions, massive elements, and it was clear this was no family coaster. What it turned out to be was ArieForce One, announced officially in November of 2021, and that's when we found out it was going to be 155 feet tall, have a 146-foot drop, cover 3,400 feet of track, and have 4 inversions. At the cost of $13 million, this was designed by Joe Draves, the man behind Steel Curtain, Lightning Run, Max Force, and Gale Force. This was supposed to open in 2022, but it got pushed back by 8 months. This was because of supply chain issues, a small construction crew, and lots of red tape from Fayette County. Finally, 8 months and millions of dollars later, everything got the green light and ArieForce opened to rave reviews. I made plans to ride this last summer and didn't have any plans to go to the southeast this year, but I had to find my way down there just to see how good this coaster can be. These are my complete thoughts and ultimate ranking of ArieForce One. When you pull up to FunSpot Atlanta, you pay $5 for parking, but they also give you a $5 gift card in the parking booth. So I guess they use parking to force you to spend money in the park. The all-day ride pass at the gate is $39.95. The online price is $34.95, and I was able to get in for $25. It seems like every year on June 10th, the park sells a discount ticket on its birthday. ArieForce One is way in the back of the park, even though it's the first thing you see when you pull into the driveway. The parking lot is clear on the other side of the park. Because of this, it's common for the rides in the front to be more crowded, but people don't seem to trickle to the back, not even for a brand new massive RMC iBox coaster. This is one of the reasons I was able to get 17 rides in just a few hours, doing this on a Saturday in June. We got there at opening, and although I heard it opens 15 minutes after the park, it was open right on time the day I was there. You go up the stairs and enter the station, and you can see all the posters on the wall, highlighting the coaster stats and notable parts of the ride. Also some banners hanging from the ceiling related to FunSpot and the ride's theme, that being spaceflight. The ride has 2 trains. When I was there, they started off with one and added the second one a few hours later, and the trains actually have their own names, Vision Airy and Extraordinary, and the ride and the trains are both named after FunSpot's founder, John Airy Sr. These trains have 5 cars with 2 rows each, so they only have 10 rows. Most other RMCs have 6-car trains and 12 rows, so right off the bat, in the back row, you're losing some whip with a shorter train. You sit down on the train, and you can see the seating chart on the monitor in front of you. If the number of the seat you're in doesn't turn green, the ride-ups will push it down until it's green. The good thing is, they'll just tighten your seatbelt, and I never once had a ride-up push down the bar anymore after it turned green. I love this practice. It's always appreciated when you can ride free and easy without worrying about getting stapled. They also didn't have assigned seating, which made the ride much better. Of my 17 rides, I did 1 ride in the front, 2 rides in row 6, and the other 14 were in the back few rows, most of them in the very back row 10. After I talk about the ride itself, I'll talk about the advantages of the different rows. You drop straight out of the station, maybe a 15-foot drop, then go into some bunny hops before you hit the lift. Like so many other RMCs that we know, this is a loud lift hill. So loud, you can't even hear the person next to you. You crest the top and dive straight down at 83 degrees. You then rise up into the one and only Raven Trust Dive. Basically a dive loop where you bank to the right and then twist down to the left. Then there's a quick speed hill, and then the world's longest 0G stall. You then rise into a large outer banked hill, then a double up, back down and into a barrel roll to the left. A right turn that suddenly twists to the left and becomes an outer bank. Then a sweeping right turn that turns into a barrel roll, and turn left into the grand finale. This is basically a quintuple down. 5 straight airtime hills in a row, and then you slam into the final brakes. From the first drop to the final brakes, the ride is 44 seconds long. That's actually on the lower end of RMC ride time, a bit behind Zadra at 46 seconds and Iron Gwazi at 47 seconds, but I don't feel like it's a short ride. The ride experience definitely feels complete, and I think a big part of that is how well the elements pop. These elements are basically an all-star team of other RMCs, taking what works and mashing them into one amazing ride with no dead elements. We talked about the elements, now let's analyze them. The first drop, I would say, is pretty average. It has good height, about the same as New Texas Giant. It's got the steep angle, and you definitely get a good pop of floater coming down. I think the drops on Iron Rattler and Iron Gwazi are much better. Those are more violent because of the angle or the twist coming down. This is just a nice long airtime filled drop. Now, the Raven Trust Dive. Not only is this a weird element, you're also entirely encased by supports. It reminds me a lot of Goliath's dive loop at Great America. The weird thing about this is the little outer bank at the top, going right before banking left, and little movements like that do a good job of throwing you out of your seat. Again, this is not ejector. This is some very good sustained floater. Now, you dive down and into your speed hill, and where some speed hills are kinda trash, like Twisted Colossus and Steel Vengeance, this does a good job of launching you out of your seat. This is your first moment of ejector, and to add to it, you're kind of turning unbanked to the left, so it's actually a good moment of lateral ejector. Now, you got the world's longest 0G stall, and again, this seems to just have that little quirk that makes it different. It's not my favorite stall. I say it's pretty much in line with Goliaths or Jokers, and it's actually coming down upside down before twisting and sending you back upright. It's a very long moment of good sustained hang time. So now, you've already experienced floater, ejector, and hang time. So now it's time to go back for seconds. To me, this is where the ride goes from a good RMC to one of the best rides of all time. First, the Outer Banked Hill. This is so aggressive and so big. It's one of those incredible sustained moments of ejector, where your thighs are all the way up against the lap bar, pressing against it hard, as your body wants so badly to launch into outer space, twisting right but diving down left. The speed that it takes this element is just off the wall, but that's not the end of it. You dive down and rise into a double up, the first pop being quick and strong, and the second one being the best moment of the ride. I've never experienced anything quite like this. That level of sustained ejector that high off the ground. It just shows how much this thing is hauling to have so much power at that point, and there's something to be said about a pure, straight camelback. This is why I love El Toro's first two hills so much. No twisting, no tricks, just straight line sustained ejector, and it's the highlight of the ride for me. Right at the bottom of this hill, you're still over the footpath so you're still high up, but at the bottom, you go right into a barrel roll twisting left. That's a heck of a high-speed inversion, and for the first time, ArieForce One brings in the lateral whip, but it's not done. The next element is just as sadistic as it is brilliant. You seem to take that innocent turn to the right, but that quick outer bank to the left is a powerful, high-speed ejector moment. That turn after seems to last forever, and since it's banked, it's a pretty good positive G moment. And as you're making that sweeping right turn, that second barrel roll is so smooth and natural, and of course, full of whip and laterals. But there's no time to relish the situation, because right after that roll, you twist left and into that quintuple down. If you want me to rank up my most powerful airtime moments, this is easily top 3. I think it goes Zip and Pip and Ejector Death Hill, Magnum's finale, and then this finale. The last step before the brakes is the most intense, but don't get wrapped up into the moment. You gotta prepare for that brake run. You end the ride with so much speed. The brakes do all they can to bring you to an easy stop, but you slam into them as hard as any ride I've ever seen. Maybe Pegasus can rival this, but then again, maybe it seems worse because of that unbanked right turn. If you combine every aspect of the ride, that brake run is what people seem to hate the most. This is why people say to ride in even numbered rows. On every RMC train, the odd number rows have nothing in front to hold on to, and the even number rows can hang onto the seat in front of them. I have always felt that holding on gives me better airtime, so I always want even number rows anyway, but it's even more important on ArieForce One. Without anything to hold on to, the impact of those brakes is downright painful. On your shins, on your stomach, and more. So now, let's talk about the rows. I came in saying I don't like RMCs in the front row, and this was no different. Sure, it has sharp ejector, but it seems like it shoves you forward into the elements, and the rest of the train pushes you through. I much prefer getting dragged through the back. This does mean less sharp ejector, but much more vertical, up and down, sustained airtime. But one ride, the only row that was open was row 6, and we decided to try it out. This was surprisingly great. I know, middle of the train, weird. But it seemed to be a perfect mix of ejector airtime and sustained vertical airtime. I don't usually ride RMCs in the middle, so I don't know if this applies to others, but now I'm curious. I know this doesn't apply to B&M Hypers, but RMCs with good ejector, maybe the middle is the sweet spot. Anyway, I was thinking, this coaster carries so much speed throughout the ride, how does this pacing stack up? I found this covers about 62.4 feet per second, and that puts it in almost a dead heat with Iron Rattler, and that's near the top of the list. It's still about 2 feet per second behind Steel Vengeance, and about 10 feet per second behind the shorter hyper hybrids, Iron Gwazi and Zadra. Still, this is better paced than most RMCs, And if you ride it or even watch it, it's obvious. I came in with a personal record of 16 rides on one coaster in one day, that being Ghost Rider at Knott's. I got 16 laps on one of those dead off-season weekdays back in 2017. I wanted to break that record, and the circumstances definitely made that possible, but it also made it difficult. Being in the back of the park, the lines aren't long. There was only one time where the line went down the stairs, but that was just for one ride. The next one, it went back to being a walk-on. I did appreciate the 2 trains, even if the dispatch times were kinda slow. It didn't hurt that much, aside from having to sit in the brake run for a long time in the hot sun. There were 2 things that almost derailed my mission of 17 rides. First, breakdowns. It went down a few times during the day. One of the breakdowns lasted well over an hour. Some of the others were pretty quick fixes, and right after my 17th ride, it went down and it stayed down for at least a half an hour before I left. I don't know how long it took to reopen from that one. That's understandable. Apparently, this doesn't break down much, but from my experience with new RMCs, their first year is always tough and they get better over time. The other factor that almost derailed my record was the finale. The airtime was so incredibly powerful, and I loved it on my first 5 or 6 rides. This is like the finale on Steel Vengeance or Lightning Run, just exponentially more powerful. It may be on the level of Magnum, but I've never marathoned Magnum like this. I bet after 7 rides, Magnum would start to hurt also. By the time I got about halfway to my goal, my thighs were in severe pain. I had to take a break after ride 10, and we spread out the last 7 a little bit thanks to breakdowns. But I knew after ride 17, after slamming into the brakes, I was done. I suggest riding this as many times as you can, but if your legs start to hurt, just stop. Normally, pain on a coaster is bad, but in this case, the ride is doing what it's supposed to do. As long as you moderate yourself, you'll enjoy the powerful air. So, the moment of truth. Where does ArieForce One rank for me? I'll be honest, it's hard to justify keeping it out of my top 5. It's a non-stop, relentless, perfect combination of elements, not a dead moment of the ride. The elements are unique, even for RMC. It feels like a complete ride, and even though it did warm up and get faster as the day went along, it was still phenomenal in my first few rides. I can't say the same about Iron Gwazi. That wasn't even a top 100 coaster in the morning, then it became a top 10 coaster by the afternoon. Because of that, I have to push it ahead of Iron Gwazi. For now, ArieForce One slides into my number 3 spot, right behind Fury, right ahead of El Toro. I just rode this last weekend. I don't want to be swayed by recency bias, and I'll be riding a bunch of other coasters this summer. Getting back on Steel Vengeance, riding Wildcat's Revenge, and Wildfire at Kilmartin for the first time. So that may give me some more context for the end of the year. So check back for my top 50 list in December to see where this ends up. One last note, from every RMC that I've ridden, it's been at a major park. So on a Saturday, or pretty much any day in the summer, it would draw a huge line. To have this elite coaster at a family entertainment center, pretty much able to marathon anytime you want, that's such a rarity, and something we should really appreciate and take advantage of. Everyone should make a trip to Fun Spot Atlanta. Combine it with a trip to Six Flags Over Georgia. That's a very solid Six Flags park. Make it a weekend trip like I did. It's definitely worth it. If you've ridden ArieForce One, let me know what you think. How does it rank up with other RMCs on your list? And how does it rank up overall? If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. And if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to be a baseball fan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.